The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Monarch Fantasy. They bring well for customers. Play just $5, give $5 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Wednesday morning, December 24th, around 11:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm Rosa always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Already did the previews for Tokyo, so we went through the outright about a day ago. Now we finally have lines for Beijing. So we're going to break down the Beijing event. We do have quarter odds for this event, so unlike Tokyo, we can go a bit more deeper into the bracket because we do have all the quarters available to us. So once again, hopefully we end up cashing some outrights for the show. Now, before we get into the actual breakdown of Beijing, a reminder, you can support the show by liking, subscribing on YouTube. Reminder, podcast is also available on Spotify and Apple. So audio only, check out Spotify and Apple, leave a rating and a review. But on YouTube, like and subscribe, also available on Twitter, on the SGPN Twitter account. Plus, a reminder, you can check out the merch store for Tennis Game Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs. High quality, very affordable. Check it out. Think you'll like the selection that we have. Plus, a reminder, if you want all of the SGPN picks and podcasts in one easy location, check out the app that we have, the SGPN app in the App Store. Free to download, get access to all of our picks and podcasts, once again, on the SGPN app at the App Store. So, before we get into the breakdown of Beijing, we can actually recap some lock and dog plays. For Tokyo, we couldn't do it because we ended up doing it before the final matches in Chengdu and Hangzhou concluded. But, of course, those matches did end, so let's recap the lock and dog picks. Unfortunately, we did not sweep. It was a heartbreaker. We were 1 point away from sweeping the board twice, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. For the lock, we had the moneyline parlay. We had Bublik with Musetti at minus 130. Bublik got the job done, won in straight sets, but Musetti had 2 championship points. He led 4-1 in the third set breaker, and he choked. As Tabilo came back and he won. Yes, Tabilo did raise his level. Musetti didn't play poorly for that stretch, but he had chances. I thought he was a better player for most of the match, and instead of getting rewarded for it, he ended up losing, and Tabilo was able to win a title as a qualifier. Either way, though, did lose the lock as Musetti could not get the job done as he squandered those 2 match points. For the dog, though, we had a winner as we had Bublik straight sets with Musetti to win a set at plus 114. We wanted Bublik straight sets, felt good about it, but we also wanted to get it at plus money as well as minus 110. Threw in Musetti to win a set in there, and he did, as he won the second set handily. Either way, though, did pick up a win with the dog. For the lock, though, damn Musetti, you had 2 separate match points. And then that just didn't work out. So, unfortunate, it is what it is. But either way, ended up splitting the actual plays. And we'll try to get a sweep here for Beijing. A reminder, we already have lock and dog picks that are public for Tokyo because we recorded that episode a day ago. So you have my thoughts for the first round of Tokyo. Check out the episode before this one. I also gave out lock and dog picks for that event. However, do want to dive in a bit deeper to the title matches we ended up seeing in Chengdu and Hangzhou. Starting off with the straightforward one, we saw Bublik win again, but an absolute machine. It was competitive, though, as a Royer did go to 2 breakers, and we saw 0 breaks in the entire match, as both guys went 0 for 2 on breakpoint chances, and you ended up seeing Bublik outlast Royer into the breaker. The exact same scoreline. He won 6-4. He won a 7-4 in both breakers, but Bublik served very well as he did all event. He ended up having 21 aces, ended up winning 81% of his first serve points, 61% of his second serve points, and most importantly, got broken 0 times. Bublik for the entire event got broken 0 times. So congratulations to Bublik for getting the job done. Royer, though, good for him. He's now in the top 75. He gave Bublik a run for his money, and we saw Royer pull off some very impressive wins, beating Rublev, for example, in straight sets, ended up beating Mutet in straight sets, beat Kovacevic, ended up beating Tien. He had a very good run. So keep an eye out for him, maybe in the later stages of the season. But the point is, fun matchup. Both of them were. But Bublik winning felt inevitable, and luckily for us, he ended up winning in straight sets to help cash the dog play. He has been a top 10 caliber player in the world, and either way, Bublik we've been backing blindly. It's been working out, and he was able to get the job done in straight sets. Good for him. So Bublik was a guy who went through the season being one of the main head cases on tour, and yet he found, I guess, a moment of clarity, and now he's been able to keep his, I'd say, emotions under control. He's been able to keep his focus under control, and he's been winning a bunch of events. So Bublik has been one of the best players of the entire, I'd say, ATP Tour so far this season. We'll see if he can maybe find a way into Turin. We'll see, but either way, Bublik wins again, and we ended up cashing with him once again. Now, for the other event in Chengdu, this was the better match, went to 3 sets, was a final set breaker, and Tabilo got the job done there against Musetti. Musetti, for the second straight year, loses in the final of Chengdu. Now, for this one, said before, it ended up going 3 sets. Tabilo served very well early in the match, as Tabilo ended up winning. Let me just pull this up. So he won 58% of his second serve points, and Musetti only won 45%. That's why he won the first set. Only, once again, faced 1 break point, and he was able to convert his against Musetti. Musetti could not convert his against Tabilo. Second set, though, Musetti got it under control, as he ended up burying him, and ended up winning 6-2 in the second set. Third set, Musetti outplayed Tabilo, as he actually won 83% of his first serve points and 62% of his second serve points. Tabilo, by comparison, won 73% and 45%. Musetti did not face a break point in the final 2 sets of the match. Tabilo fought off all 3, including the 2 title points that he ended up having to deal with in the 5-6 return game. But he fought those off, and then Tabilo fell behind 4-1 in the breaker. Felt like Musetti was going to get the job done, and then Tabilo ended up coming back, and he was able to survive and win with a mini break to win the entire match. So nice job by Tabilo. Mentioned it before. I am a fan of his game. Think he's a very solid player. Musetti, though, I thought was the better player for a decent portion of the match. Losing a match where you end up not facing a break point for the final 2 sets is pretty rough. But either way, Tabilo got the job done. Phenomenal Cinderella run as a qualifier. And Musetti, at the end of the day, he played very well. But on key points, it just seemed like Tabilo outsmarted him. And there was one point in the breaker, he threw in a drop shot, then he came to the net, put it away. It just felt like Tabilo was able to keep Musetti slightly off balance, and instead of letting Musetti get whatever he wanted timing-wise from behind the baseline, he was willing to get creative, use some variety, trying to keep Musetti off balanced. It was very even, but Tabilo on bigger points played better, and that's why he won. So it was definitely a matchup that Musetti probably should have won based on the stats, but Tabilo, he's got heart, tries very hard, and at the end of the day, he was able to find a way to survive and advance to a title. So good for him. As for us, a bit painful, as Musetti once again did not cash the money line for the lock play, but at least he won a set to cash the dog. Very fun match, full of drama, and Musetti ended up falling short. So either way, 2 fun finals that we ended up seeing in Chengdu and Hangzhou, and hopefully we'll get some good finals coming up in Tokyo and Beijing over the next week. Anyway, time to move on into the actual preview of the event for Beijing. Before we get into the event there in Beijing, a reminder, they're brought to you by our sponsor, which is MyBook.ag. Using to bet on football, college football, they have a prop builder, which is second to none. Their motto is simple: better than anything, anywhere, anytime. You can use crypto for deposits and payouts when you sign up for a new account. Use code SGPN for 100%. The back bonus $500 for new customers. MyBook.ag promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is America's #1 sports option market. And since Novig's an exchange, we're getting some great prices. It's available in a bunch of states, 35 of them to be exact. So make sure to check if it's available in your state. When you download the app, you get $50 when you spend just $5 if you use the promo code SGPN. So once again, get on the action with Novig, promo code SGPN, bet $5, get $50 in bonus funds. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the finals in Chengdu and Hangzhou. Time to move on into the preview of Beijing. So, for this event, you're looking at the recent winners. You saw Alcaraz, who beat Sinner last year. Sinner beat Medvedev the year prior. You had a COVID gap, and then I believe Thiem ended up beating Tsitsipas the year before COVID. But the point is, we've seen a lot of high-end talent win this event. Not many Cinderellas make it to the final or win. So once again, if you want to go for chalk, historically speaking, it has been pretty effective as a future strategy for the event in itself. Now, looking at the actual, once again, odds so far, starting off with the quarters, since we have quarter odds. First quarter, you have Sinner and he's around minus 600, give or take. You have Kashanov at 7-1. You have Ottman at 16-1, as he was able to outlast, I believe it was Dzanchulp in qualifying. Let me just quickly pull that up. But I believe it was, I think it was Dzanchulp. Yeah, he won 7-6, 7-6. So nice job by him winning that match there. But either way, he is currently at 16 or 18-1. I see Morozin at 16-1. Bonzi 16-1. Chilich is at 35-1. His reward is playing center in the first round. Mueller at 35-1 and Zhang at 40-1. Now, for this event, bit different in terms of formatting. We have no buys. So Sinner's playing in the first round. So keep that in mind. There are no immediate passes into the second round. Now, for the actual odds here, Sinner, of course, is the massive favorite to win the quarter, defending runner-up, and we know that he's a former champion. I'm not picking it against him at all, and I think that this actual quarter is pretty weak. Look, no offense to Ottman, and no offense to Morozin, etc., but you could argue Kashanov's maybe the only other guy who has a chance in this quarter, and I'm not taking him. Now, I'm not going to take Sinner at minus 550, but for the sake of the show, I got to at least talk about who we're going to pick to win the quarter, and I'm picking Sinner. That's it. I got nobody else I'm going to take. It's a waste of time taking anybody else. Sinner might lose to Alcaraz in events, but Alcaraz isn't here. So I think Sinner should win the quarter pretty handily. I think he'll look sharp, and I think that minus 550 honestly makes sense. I would not bet that straight, but I do think you're looking at who I'm picking for the quarter. It's going to be Sinner. Like, I'm not going to get creative here. Give me Sinner at minus 550. Not going to bet it, but that's my only choice for the first quarter. If you don't want to take that in the parlay, then pass. Just simply put. I see no value on anybody else to win the quarter. Moving on to a more open second quarter, the de Minaur quarter. He's plus 110 off a great showing in the Laver Cup. You have Mensik at 330. Not great in the Laver Cup, but he's still here nonetheless. Kaza is at 7-1 after having a nice win in qualifying, as he, I believe, advanced via retirement against Hallis last night. You have Kmanovic at 9-1. You have Echeverry at 10-1. Don't know if he's healthy. Last time we saw him, he got hurt against Moutet. Not sure if he's actually going to play in the event. I wouldn't take him to win the quarter anyway, because he's not a great hardcore player. But injuries can play a factor. We'll see if Echeverry is even able to suit up for this event. You have Bu at 14-1, Shang at 14-1, and Goffin as the series long shot here at 28-1. Now, for the actual quarter breakdown, I skipped it for Sinner because why bother? He'll be favored to beat everybody by a wide margin. Second quarter, though, you have de Minaur against Bu, then either Goffin or Echeverry if he actually stays in the event. So I like the path for de Minaur. I think you could argue Mensik is the main competition. Then again, Mensik has not been very good lately in terms of wins and losses. De Minaur, I think I have to take here at plus 110. Fatigue can play a factor for the Laver Cup. I'm aware of it, but I do think that his draw is quite nice, and I like the form that he's in, beating Zverev, for example, in the Laver Cup. Give me de Minaur at plus 110 as my first choice for the quarter, but since I do think Mensik is vulnerable, I am going to go for a longer shot for the bottom end of that quarter, who maybe could make a deep run. I'll go for it. Did lose to Nakashima in the last event, but of course he's in his home country of China. I'm going with Shang at 14-1. The issue is always durability with Shang, but I do think that his firepower could translate well to the courts here, and I do think that his path is not that bad. Does have Kaza in the first round. Could be tricky. He's a slight dog in that one. He's around plus 120. But Cheng was, once again, a guy who we know can win ATP titles. We saw him win one last year in China as well, and I think the crowd support should be there for him. But Kaza was pretty fortunate that Hallis got injured and had to quit in qualifying. So Kaza got in. It might be a war, but I think Shang has some value. Kaza, though, being roughly half the price of Shang, when the money line prices are somewhat close to each other, I think is a bit unreasonable. Give me Shang as my long shot here at 14-1. Will he win the quarter? Probably not. But Mensik, I think, is vulnerable. And if Shang ends up making it to the quarters, maybe the crowd support and maybe his durability hold up for one event. Good enough. Give me Shang at 14-1 as my long shot for the second quarter. Moving on to the third quarter. This is going to be the Musetti quarter against Bublik. So you have two finalists, one champion from last week who are back in action. Rublev's at 4-1. You have Sorundolo at 750. Tien at 8-1. Kaboli 9-1. Pericard's at 12-1. And Manarino is 14-1. So Musetti and Bublik were in very good form as they made the title matches over the past few days. But we know Musetti did really leave a lot on the court, or I should say he ended up leaving a title on the court because he probably should have won against Tabilo. Bublik, though, keeps rolling. So for the path, the question is, will fatigue play a factor for either guy? I think it would play a factor for Musetti more than Bublik, because Bublik we saw in the clay slate win a couple titles. He would play back-to-back weeks, and he was fine. So I think that he should be okay. Musetti, though, had a marathon against Tabilo. Now he's against Perricard in the first round. Think he should beat Perricard because he owns him in the head-to-head. In fact, Perricard barely forces breakpoints against Musetti because he can't rally or return to save his life. But he would face off against Bublik in the second round. I would take Bublik in that matchup. So I see no value on Musetti personally. I think he actually should not be the favorite in the quarter. I think it should be Bublik if I had to price it myself. Now, for the other end, Rublev's against Kaboli in the first round matchup, which is why Kaboli's odds are relatively long. If you want to go for an angle, maybe you could argue for TN or Cerundolo. You let Rublev and Kaboli kill each other. You face off against the winner in the second round. But I'm going to go pretty simple for this third quarter, going Bublik by himself at plus 275. He's been phenomenal. You've been able to trust him for the last couple months, and the fact is he got broken 0 times in an entire event in Hangzhou. His serve should play well here in Beijing. Good enough for me. Think he'll beat Manarino, and I do think that he's proven he can handle events back-to-back without any rest. We saw that in the clay slate. Think he'll look sharp here. Like the price at 275 for this one. Now, besides that, I see Manzi asking if Musetti could have an emotional letdown after the loss. I think he might. I mean, it felt like he had the match almost handed to him, and he ended up losing. So Musetti, will see if physically, I know he's had durability concerns over the years, or emotionally, he mentally checks out. Either or, I'm not picking him to win the quarter. So I'm skipping Musetti, partially for the reason you just mentioned or alluded to. But I also think Bublik would beat him in a matchup, and that would be a second-round match. So I like the draw here for Bublik. Think that he's proven that he's definitely worthy of blindly backing on hard court events, especially, even though he won on grass and he also won on clay this year. Bublik's been great, no matter what the surface is. So I'll take him at 275 as my only choice for the third quarter. Moving on to the final quarter. This is going to be a pretty interesting one because you have Zverev at plus 110, Medvedev at 3-1, you have Fokina at 4-1, Mutets at 9-1, Greek Sports at 12-1, you have Nori at 14-1, Sonego is 16-1, and Carabelli is around 80-1. So Zverev, last time we saw him, he was awful in the Laver Cup, punting the competition to Team World. Now, he seemed a bit injured in the event. At least people kept claiming he was compromised, and the actual miles per hour on his serve was drastically down. I think it was down around 12 miles per hour. So the point is the matchup against Fritz was somewhat close, went to a breaker, but he did lose in straight sets to Fritz and to de Minaur, and it seems like he was injured. Now, because of that, I will not be taking Zverev in this quarter, besides the fact I can't stand him, and I do think that he's, I'd say, vulnerable to struggling randomly against guys he should beat. I do think the injury in the Laver Cup is worth noting, and I do question if he will be 100% for the entire run. Now, he's against Sonego in the first round. He's beaten Sonego every time. There have been a couple of marathon sets and a couple of matchups that have gone to a deciding set. So maybe Zverev might be on upset alert in the first round, but I will not be taking Zverev with the injury. Think that taking a compromised opponent a compromised player at plus 110 is just not appealing to me. If it was a better price, sure, but plus 110 for a guy who has been banged up lately is not appealing to me at all. I will pass on Zverev. Now, because of that, that leaves a potential opening in this fourth quarter, involving guys you really don't want to back, but you might have to, based on the pricing. So, once again, you have Zverev, you have Medvedev, you have Fokina. Now, I do think one of those three will win the quarter. I don't think Nori's good enough. Carabelli, I think, is a lost cause on hard court. And you have Mutet, who can be creative, but I think that Zverev is a bad matchup for him, whether he's injured or not, because of the court coverage, and we know Mutet's not a great server. And Greek Sports fitness has been really, really bad for the last couple of months, and we saw him lose to Daniel in 3 in his last event. So based on that, through elimination, process of elimination, I do think you're looking at what could be taking some very I'd say, uncomfortable options for the quarter. I'm skipping Zverev at plus 110. Because of that, hold your nose. I'm taking Medvedev at 3-1, and I'm taking Fokina at 4-1. Now, Fokina has not played since the U.S. Open. We know that he's made a couple of hardcourt finals this year. He can choke, but he tends to take care of business against weaker competition, and I do think that he can give Zverev a run for his money if Zverev is below 100%. Now, the reason why I'm taking both is because they play against each other in the second round. So I'm basically going to avoid Zverev entirely, and because of that, if Medvedev plays against Fokina in the second round, I have a guy in the quarters who can maybe pull off the upset against Zverev. We know that Medvedev head-to-head-wise has been good against Zverev. Now, I get it's a bit annoying when you're backing a guy who's an absolute head case in Medvedev, who choked against, it was Yibing in the last event, the match he should have won. But if I'm fading the injured player, I kind of have to go for two guys that I'm not happy about, but I got to at least play the field. I got to go with Medvedev at 3-1 and Fokina at 4-1. Do I trust Medvedev? Not even a little bit. But with the head-to-head numbers and with the draw, I'll back the other side of the quarter with Medvedev at 3-1 and Fokina at 4-1, and we'll fade the injured Zverev for the quarter. So if you want to avoid that, I don't blame you, because I do think that Medvedev is a very vulnerable guy. I see Joe mentioning the same thing. He doesn't want to trust Medvedev. Yeah, I don't blame you. Once again, I really don't blame you. But I think 3-1 makes sense. I think that Fokina at 4-1 makes sense too. So give me both. We'll fade Zverev and go from there. Anyway, moving on to the actual outrights to win the event. Not many options I'm going to go with. A spoiler, but at least I have to be honest. With Sinner and Alcaraz playing different events this week, it can be very chalky, so keep that in mind. Sinner to win the entire event is minus 225. With no bye, by the way, minus 225. Zverev is at 6-1. You have Dimonau at 11-1. Bublik is around 15-1. I see Musetti 15-1. I see Medvedev at 18-1. Mensik 25-1. You have Rublev at 28-1. Khachanov 30-1. Fokina 35-1. Cerundolo 40-1. I see Tien at 50-1. Caboli 60, and you get the point. So, simply put, do I think Sinner will win the event? Yes. Yes, I do. There's no reason why I shouldn't. We know Sinner and Alcaraz own the entire tour. They split up all the territory amongst themselves, and it does feel like with Sinner and Alcaraz, I'd say changing events this year, not playing against each other in Beijing. I think Alcaraz and Sinner should look sharp in their respective events, and I think Sinner should look very good off the loss in the U.S. Open final. Maybe a chip on his shoulder to get back on track to get ready for Turin. Think he'll look great here. Minus 225, though, is a very ugly price, but I found a better price in Bet Rivers, which went kind of rogue. Most books had around minus 180, minus 190. However, I did find Bet Rivers had minus 148. Still juicy, I get it, but I'm not picking against them. So I'll go with Sinner at 148. I saved about 80 cents shopping around DraftKings with Bet Rivers. So give me Bet Rivers there for the rogue line. Minus 148 is my choice for the first outright. But you know what? I will not go with Sinner by himself because I'd feel pretty disgusting if I made a full episode on outrights and only gave out one guy who was a minus 150 basically. So instead, give me the wagon to join him. Found an 18-1 on Bublik. I'm going to take it. At the end of the day, I think he's worth the blind trust. He's proven in a tour with a bunch of top 10 guys who seem to always fall apart whenever you need them to keep it together. Bublik has been consistent, and he's been a money maker. He's been a cash cow. Good enough for me. Give me Bublik at 18-1. We saw him beat Sinner. It was on grass earlier this year. I know that Sinner got revenge in the U.S. Open, so that's not exactly fun. Bublik, though, is in the bottom half, so he could avoid Sinner until the title match, which is definitely nice to have in your back pocket. But 18-1 for a guy who's been an absolute wagon, one of the hottest players on tour, I think it's definitely a great overall price for Bublik. I'll go with him there. Will he win the event? Probably not. But I do think that Bublik is a guy who at this price is worth taking at 18-1. Anyway, a point is once again to recap the outrights for Beijing. For the quarter plays, first quarter, Sinner minus 550. Not betting it, but I have to be honest here. He should run unopposed in this first quarter. Second quarter, I'm going to go with Dimonau at plus 110 and Shang at plus 1,400. So I think that's a pretty decent long shot to go with for this quarter, since I am lower on Mensick. Third quarter, give me Bublik by himself at 275. Think that it's a great draw for him, and his form is second to none right now. Like the price there for Bublik. Fourth quarter, the very, very dangerous section. I'm going to fade Zverev. I will back Medvedev for some reason. When he loses, I'll remember to be mad at myself in a couple days. But 3-1, I'll take, and I'll go with Fokina at 4-1 as well. Fade and compromise Zverev in that quarter. Now, for the outrights to win the event in general, give me Sinner at minus 148, and give me Bublik at 18-1 as my two choices there for the title options. Anyway, it's going to wrap it up for the hour. It's time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks for the first round. Before we get into the Lock and Dog picks, a reminder that we are brought to you by our sponsor, which is Arnold Fantasy. Using to play your pick'em entries with 500 times your entry, pick higher or lower, your favorite player stats, available for a ton of different sports, including tennis. So in addition to baseball and football, they also have options for tennis. They have breaks to serve, they have aces, they have double faults. Check out the options they have on Underdog. And a reminder, if you are new to the platform, use the new offer that they have for customers. Play just $5, give $5 bonus funds, which is promo code SGPN. We're also brought to by Rhythm, so check out their college football stuff. They've been off to a great start for college football in the NFL. They have a leaderboard system with weekly cash prizes for tracking your bets in the App Store. Track 5 bets of the same type for any model that you build and you can win $1K. And a reminder, we have a discount code to give you a nice discount on your first month. Use the code SGPN25 when you download the Rhythm app for a quarter off your first month. Download the Rhythm app. Once again, promo code SGPN25. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the outrights for Beijing. Time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go back to Fokina as he takes on Carabelli. I will go with a total for this one. Give me the under. 20.5 games here at minus 134. That was on Bet Rivers. Now, Carabelli, we know, has had a pretty decent season. Still a clay specialist, not a good hardcourt player. He is currently 1-5 straight up in his last 6 hardcourt matches, and he did not win a single set in all 5 of those losses. Now, a couple retirements were in there, so I can't say that he lost in straight sets. He was on pace to lose in straight sets. Point is, though, when he loses handily. We saw him lose to Hijikata in his last match. It was actually close, but there were a ton of breaks. Carabelli faced 17 break points against Hijikata, and we know that Fokina is a very, very good returner. I think that Carabelli is going to struggle to hold serve here. I think that Fokina should break it at least one time in each set, probably multiple times in at least one set. But the total does feel kind of high to me for 20.5. I think Fokina, I know he hasn't played in a couple weeks since the U.S. Open. He might be a choker, but that's against good competition later on in events, not in the first round. I think it's a good spot for Fokina. I think that Carabelli is simply put outmatched here on hard court, and with his serve being a problem, allowing 17 break points to Chikata in his last match, I see a good spot for Fokina to showcase the returning skills and to once again win comfortably. Might end up 6-4, 6-2 in this one. I see it being lopsided, though. Give me the under for the games. Think Fokina in straight sets is like minus 190, so it's juice for a reason. Not going to take it. Give me the under instead at 20.5 as my lock for the show. For the dog, I'm going to go back to the Musetti match, actually, against Perricard. Simply put, I'm going to go with the reliable for Perricard. First set over 10.5 games at plus 125. Now, Musetti might be exhausted. We'll see. If he is, it'll affect his return game, but we know that Perricard can't return. So I do think you're looking at what could be a breaker. 7 of Perricard's last 11 matches did go to a breaker in the first set. So I think you're looking at a spot where history is on our side. Not to mention, faced off a couple of times in their careers, and we've seen some early set tie breaks. 2 of the 3 career meetings featured a first set tie break faced off in the U.S. Open a couple of weeks ago. That also featured a tie break in the first set. Musetti eventually killed them, but the first set featured no breaks. I think you're looking at a similar story here for this one. Courts play fast. Musetti might be exhausted. Wouldn't shock me if some fatigue plays a factor, but we know Perricard is a useless returner, probably the worst returner on tour. Worse than Opelka, probably. But the point is, you're looking at a guy who's a great server, doesn't actually return, and I think it's a good price. History, though, is on our side, as this prop is 7-4 in Perricard's last 11, and they faced off on hard court a couple weeks ago in the U.S. Open, and that did cash as well. Give me the Perricard first set over 10.5 games at plus 125 is my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog picks of the first round in Beijing. Lock's going to be on the Fokina match. under 20.5 games at minus 134. For the dog, I'm going to go with Musetti and Pericard first set over 10.5 games at plus 125. Now, for the next episode, we'll see what the actual schedule is because Tokyo does start a day before Beijing. So we'll see if we can group the quarters together or if we have to go separate. But the point is there will be an episode for the quarters for Tokyo. So keep that in mind. Till next time, I'm on Twitter as Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.